Simon Dixon, author of Bank to the Future, CEO of BnkToTheFuture.com. You're also a crypto and Bitcoin angel investor. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Simon, you were on about a year ago. Let's bring people up to speed who didn't see that show. You've got a deep background in finance, in economics, in banking. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this space.
Yeah, it's been about a 20-year journey for me. So I started, geeking out in economics, studied at, did a master's in that, then started my career in banking, started as a market maker and then worked in corporate finance, helping companies go public. And in 2006, decided that it was time to throw in the corporate towel and started giving lectures on the unsustainable nature of banking. No one really cared at the time, but then 2007 happened. And that started to get a little bit of attention. So I decided I wanted to write this book, Bank to the Future, Protect Your Future Before Governments Go Bust. And as part of that, I was invited to speak at the first Bitcoin conference. Prior to that, I was trying to create a bank, similar story to Raoul as well, and failed miserably at creating a bank. And when I found the Bitcoin community, I guess I was more interested in hearing their message because I saw it as a solution for building a bank. And so decided from there to pivot the business. And we found the platform BnkToTheFuture.com just so I could help many of the Bitcoin companies secure funding. And we invested in companies that are now the largest companies in our industry, from Kraken to Bitfinex to Bitstamp, Coinbase, Blockchain.com, Circle, and many over 100 others.
You know, it's really extraordinary timing here in 2006. You must have had very sensitive antennae to detect what was going on in the ether. This, of course, is before the global financial crisis, before the Satoshi white paper. What was it that gave you a sense that something might be wrong?
Well, prior to the Bitcoin community, I was part of a niche community called the monetary reform community. We were really looking and geeking out on things like reading the Bank Charter Acts of 1694 and various other different acts. And that was my idea of fun reading at the time. And so really, we understood that, banks invented digital currency. When I dug deeper into that, I realized that banks own your money, banks spend your money, and they are also the creators of digital currency through what I call the world's largest regulated Ponzi scheme called fiat currencies. So governments gave the ability for banks to create digital currencies and the digital representation of what people think is the government's created currency. And so when I found when I found Bitcoin, it was just the opposite. It gave people the ability to own their own money, gave people the ability to spend their own money, and it had a fixed money supply that didn't really need to change based upon the whims of central bankers. There was only one problem. It was highly likely to fail. So we needed to invest in the companies that could make the technology easier for people to engage with. We took a bet. Each year, the demand for people to own their own money, spend their own money, and have fixed supply digital hard sound money grew. And then we are here today where we're approaching we're over a $3 trillion market cap of the entire industry.
Boy, this really is a story that's still as fresh as today's headlines. Just today, BOE, that's the Bank of England, out with a formal consultation to begin a CBDC, central bank digital currency, electronic currency project. This has been right in your wheelhouse, right what you've been thinking about and talking about. You know, the last time you were on, Simon, we talked in detail about monetary policy, the monetary system, banks, central banking. Now here we are with Bitcoin and Ether, both at or near all-time highs. It's an extraordinary validation of the thesis.
Yeah, so in the book, Bank to the Future, I talked about, wasn't called modern monetary theory, but talked about how governments and central banks one day will take back the ability to create the money supply. And so when I think about central bank digital currencies, most people are focusing on the use case of the digital payments. But actually, the way that I've always seen them is radical monetary and banking reform. This is competing with banks, and I believe hedging for the fact that there's systemic risk in the banking system. And so it's the unwinding and the deleveraging of the world's largest regulated Ponzi scheme. But it comes with a big cost, and that is the effect that it has on our privacies, freedoms, and just general, the control that money has over our lives as well. So I first started talking about this in 2016, and it was a bit of a crazy thesis at the time that I said that if there's a systemic risk event in banking again, then I believe that central banks will issue a central bank digital currency, allow everybody to download a wallet, and allow the banks to go bust. And that's an interesting hedge that I think many central banks have been exercising, but people don't really truly appreciate how radical this is in terms of a complete redefinition of how our money works.
Do you see the risks of that scenario rising now that we have the technology in Bitcoin and some of the other headwinds that you see in the system? Is that something that you see increasing in probability?
Yeah, so when I was first thinking about central bank digital currency, I wasn't really thinking that a central bank could benefit anything from blockchain technology. It was just a digital representation and a centralized database, and really, being able to do things faster and cheaper by just doing it in a completely centralized way. There's not much use case in having the blockchain in that technology stack. So I always thought about that, but as Bitcoin has progressed, the interest from banks and central banks and in utilizing blockchain as a mechanism, and this whole debate around public and private blockchains came up. And really, a private blockchain to me is just a digital currency, and a blockchain is only a blockchain if it's public.
So let's talk a little bit about the solution. Now that you've framed out some of the challenges that you've seen, talk about Bitcoin and blockchain, public blockchains, as a solution that you see to this challenge that we have now, in your view, in the central banking dominated monetary policy system.
So Bitcoin, to me, is an exit from the traditional financial system. It gave people the ability to own their own money. It gave people the ability to spend their own money. And it gave people the ability to hold hard digital sound money. And so those three trends are really, really important, because we've had an incredible amount of legal changes that have ruined the user experience of money. It's now reached the stage right now where I feel like I only hold an amount of money at a bank that I think I might be able to spend if the bank gives me permission, and if I provide enough information for them to be comfortable giving me entitlement to the money that they legally own, but they pretend that it's mine. And the laws are getting worse and worse and worse. So the user experience is getting bad. Now, there's a check and control on that. And that is that there's an exit from the financial system. So if Bitcoin, to me, has become a regulator of regulators. And so I do think that Bitcoin creates better fiat money in the end, because fiat money has to compete with the alternatives. And the rate of innovation that we've seen in Bitcoin, blockchain, and the crypto industry is always outpacing regulatory and legal changes. And so whenever there is a regulatory crackdown, I've seen a lot of them in my time over the last decade, you tend to always get that followed by a cycle of innovation, and then regulatory changes in order to catch up with that cycle of innovation, and then a new cycle of innovation comes along. So to me, it's healthy. And if it wasn't for Bitcoin, I'd be very skeptical about where the world is going and where money is going. And Bitcoin's like this breath of fresh air that makes both sides of the equation better in the end.
Hey, if you like this clip, be sure to check out the full interview and more only on realvision.com/crypto. It's 100% free. Sign up now.